What's up, guys? My name is TechnoTuner, and today I'm bringing to you my Fairy Tale Magistus deck profile for Genesys. This deck is a lot of fun, has a lot of good capabilities, and I was able to play it at my other locals as well, just for fun with friends. While this deck is very extra deck dependent and being able to utilize your spells, traps, and other monster effects, you can actually set up some decent locks and be able to really go against your opponent pretty easily with this. Please do note I am missing a few cards, but I have supplemented them with a few additional cards that may further help, at least in the time being. While this deck does have a lot of good interaction, being able to prevent your opponent from using Xyz, Synchro, or Fusion effects, you can also set up a monster negate. You can also set up some protection for your fairy tale monsters. You can do some name changing of monsters as well. This deck has a lot of good capability, and even with the improvements that you can pull and put into this deck, you can change it into a very good competitive deck as well. But I wanted to at least bring it to you guys today on the not the competitive version, but the Genesys version to show you what I'm working with. Right now, this deck list is at 94 points. It may go up, it may go down. It's really dependent on how the Genesys points list for the next Genesys point update goes. So let's go ahead and hop right into this, and I'll explain a little bit more on what the deck does and how it goes about it. So before we get into the main deck, I wanted to explain a little bit more about the lore of the deck. What are the fairy tales? Fairy tales are basically the folklore stories of different princesses and stories about, well, yeah, of course, princesses and their lore throughout different countries and communities. For example, we have the Machigiru, which is the matchstick folklore. We have Luna, which, if I remember correctly, is part of Japanese lore. We have Rella, which is Cinderella. We have Sleeper, which is Sleeping Beauty. Snow, which is, of course, Snow White. But you have those different lores and different princesses being told about in the stories, which is why they meet their Prince Charming, which is why you're changing your opponent's monster to be the Prince of Fairies. So that helps break it down and make it harder for your opponent to really interact, because it's going to utilize that and get effects based off of that. The full story lore is very interesting, and I do recommend looking it up because these little cats or mice or animals are being depicted as princesses for children. It's basically a foretelling of how these stories came about and how they've influenced children and families throughout the entire lifetime of basically all the actual background of the stories. It's very interesting nonetheless. If you like your history, that is one thing I would recommend taking a look into. Anyways, enough of me blabbering on about that. Let's go ahead and look at our main deck. Gonna go ahead and start off with the 3 Fairy Tale Machigiru. This card is the new ultra rare from Blazing Dominion, and it's very fun to use. If a spellcaster monster with 1850 original attack is on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand or graveyard. Also, you cannot special summon for the rest of his turn except spellcaster monsters. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add 1 fairy tale spell or trap or 1 fairy tale tales from your deck to your hand. You can pay 500 life points. The name of 1 effect monster opponent controls becomes Prince of Fairies. You can only use this effect of Fairy Tale Machigiru once per turn. So basically, being a really good extender, but also being able to get us some good cards to our hand from our deck can really help us out in that aspect. The other card that I'm playing of the fairy tales is 3 Fairy Tale Luna. When this card is normal summon, you can add 1 spellcaster monster with 1850 from your deck to your hand. Once per turn, quick effect, you can target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. Your opponent can send 1 card with that monster's name from their deck or extra deck to the graveyard to negate this effect. Otherwise, return both this card and that monster to the hand. So, these are the only fairy tales I'm really running in the main deck for the time being. I'm basically not sold on Sleeper or Rella. Those are really good ones for the competitive build if you're looking towards doing that, where you can't target your actual cards with, or your fairy tale monsters. I can't remember what it is. But Rella basically makes it to where they can't target it with spell cards outside of Rella. So it does give you a little bit of additional protection, but it's also a good way to recycle your equip spell that's in the graveyard as well with Rella. Sleeper is a flip effect monster, so I feel like it's a little too slow to really utilize, but that's another thing unto itself. Instead, I'm running 3 Genia of the Ring. This is a TCG exclusive from Blazing Dominion. If this card is in your hand, you can target 1 face-up monster on the field, special summon this card, but that target becomes a spellcaster monster. The next time, that target will be destroyed by a card effect. This turn, it is not destroyed. You can not special summon from the extra deck for the rest of this turn except spellcaster monsters. If this card is tributed or banished to activate a spellcaster effect or monster's effect, you can add this card to your hand. You can only use this effect of Genia of the Ring once per turn. So basically giving you a further extender, but also being able to allow you to go into your rank 4 plays can really help out. Being able to get recycled back to your hand for different effects, depending on what you utilize it for, as well can help too. Now for the Magistus package. I'm playing 3 Spenta the Magistus Sealer. You can discard this card, then activate one of these effects. Add 1 Magistus monster from your deck to your hand, except Spenta the Magistus Sealer. Have the attack of 1 monster opponent controls until the end of this turn. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 1 face-up monster you control. Equip 1 Magistus monster from your extra deck or graveyard to it as an equip spell. You can only use this effect of Spenta the Magistus Sealer once per turn. So being able to give you a little bit of way to search into your Magistus monsters, but also give you an additional equip can help out greatly depending on what locks and what effects you're trying to utilize. Next, of course, I'm playing 2 Crowley the Gifted Magistus. If this face-up card is used as fusion material, its name can be treated as Alistair the Invoker. You can only use each of the following effects of Crowley the Gifted Magistus once per turn. If this card is added to your hand, except by drawing it, you can special summon it. If this card is normal or special summon, except during damage step, you can fusion summon 1 Magistus or Invoked monster from your extra deck using monsters from hand or field. Basically turning any of your light monsters or, any of your light monsters, such as the Fairy Tales, into a way to go into Mechaba to set up a negation can really help set up your board and give you some additional protection as well. For the last Magistus, I'm playing 1 Zorua, the Magistus of Flame. You can target 1 Magistus monster you control, equip it with 1 Magistus monster from your extra deck. If this card becomes equipped with a Magistus monster card, you can special summon 1 level 4 spellcaster from your hand or graveyard in defense position, except Zorua, the Magistus of Flame, but its effects are negated. You can only use the effect of Zorua, the Magistus of Flame, once per turn. So being able to get a tuner, but also a recursive monster on the board, that helps as well. Now for the little tech I'm doing, I'm playing a small Witchcrafter engine, one being 1 Witchcrafter Genie, or Jenny. During the main phase, quick effect, you contribute this card and discard 1 spell, special 1 Witchcrafter monster from your deck, except Witchcrafter Jenny. You can banish this card and 1 Witchcrafter spell from your graveyard. This effect becomes that spell's effect when that card is activated. You can only use this, or use each effect of Witchcrafter Jenny once per turn. Then I'm playing 1 Witchcrafter Golem Aruru. When your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a spellcaster monster or monsters you control, or targets it for an quick attack, or targets it for an attack quick effect, you can target 1 card your opponent controls or 1 Witchcrafter spell in your graveyard. Special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, return that targeted card to the hand. You can only use this effect of Witchcrafter Golem Aruru once per turn. Once per turn during your opponent's standby phase, return this card to your hand, basically giving you a big body on the board to get some bounce back if you don't want a certain monster destroyed, such as an extender or anything really along those lines. It gives you an additional body to basically summon and bounce back, save it for a summon. Perfect example, Fairy Tale Magic or Luna. If they are targeting it for an attack and you don't have a way to protect it, Witchcrafter Golem Aruru is a good way to bounce it back. Now, our target to summon off of our Jenny is 1 Witchcrafter Madame Beret. During damage calculation, if your spellcaster monster battles an opponent's monster, quick effect, you can reveal any number of spells with different names in your hand, and if you do, your battling monster gains 1,000 attack and defense for each, revealed until the end of this turn. Quick effect, you can discard 1 spell, negate the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent currently controls until the end of this turn. You can only use this effect of Witchcrafter Madame there once per turn. So giving you a board negation can also help seal out games, but also give you a little bit more protection with the spells that you can basically recur with the Witchcrafter side, but also give you a bit of access to boosting your monsters for game or being able to beat over certain monsters as well. Now, as for the hand traps, of course, I am playing 3 Ghost Mourner and Moonlit Chill. This is just a slightly worse effect veiler. If your opponent special summons a monster or monsters face up except during the damage step, you can discard this card, then target one of those face up monsters, negates effects until the end of this turn. Also, if that face up monster leaves the field this turn, its controller takes damage equal to the original attack. You can only use this effect of Ghost Mourner or Moonlit Chill once per turn. So basically, it does inflict burn damage, but you have to trigger it as soon as it's special summons. So as soon as that monster hits the board, you have to Moonlit Chill it. You can't wait like Effect Veiler or anything like that. Next, of course, I'm playing 2 Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. When a monster on the field activates its effect, or when a spell or trap is already face up on the field and activates its effect, quick effect, you can send this card from your hand or field to the graveyard, destroy that card on the field. You can only use this effect of Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit once per turn. Now you can suffice and supplement in either another Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit, or you can run 3DD Crow as well. That'll also give you up to, I think, 97, 98 points, if I remember correctly. But these are all the monsters that I'm currently playing in this deck to keep it around 40, 41 cards. While this deck has a lot of good monsters here, let's hop right into our spells and traps, and I'll explain a little bit more on what those do. All right, for our spells and traps, let's go ahead and start off with the Fairy Tale package. Right now we're playing 3 Fairy Tale Ball. When this card is activated, you can add 1 Fairy Tale monster or 1 Fairy Tale Tales from your deck or banishment to your hand. Your opponent, your Fairy Tale monsters can attack directly once per turn if your opponent special summons a monster or monsters and you control a Fairy Tale monster except during the damage step. You can target 1 effect monster your opponent controls, negates effects. Also, its name becomes Prince of Fairies. You can only activate 1 Fairy Tale Ball per turn. So basically giving you an additional search, but also giving you access to your starters as well, and making it to where you can add it from banishment or deck can help out greatly. The other thing is, if your opponent special summons a monster and you control a Fairy Tale monster, you can change its name to Prince of Fairies, which makes it harder for your opponent to really interact if it is dependent on names. Next, of course, we're playing 2 Tales of the Fairy Tale. The equipped monster gains 1,000 attack once per turn. During your main phase, you can fusion summon 1 spellcaster fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand, field, and or Prince of Fairies your opponent controls as material. If this card is in your graveyard, you can equip this card to 1 Fairy Tale monster on the field. Then immediately after this effect resolves, you can normal summon 1 spellcaster monster with 1,850 attack. You can only use this effect of Tales of the Fairy Tales once per turn, basically giving you additional interaction and fusion capabilities, but also boosting your monster's attack can really help seal out some damage. Then, of course, we're playing the 1 Once Upon a Fairy Tale. Special summon up to 1 light Fairy Tale monster, each from your hand, graveyard, and banishment with different names. Also, you cannot special summon for the rest of this turn except spellcaster monsters. If this card is banished or sent to the graveyard except on the field, you can set this card, but it cannot be activated unless you control a Fairy Tale monster. You can only use each effect of Once Upon a Fairy Tale once per turn. Being able to get further interaction, get your monsters back onto the board, and get rolling can help set up some really massive plays to help you continue on. Now for the Magistus stuff, I am, of course, playing... Well, hold on here. Drop my cards. That does not help anything. So, of course, going into the Magistus stuff, I'm playing 3 Magistus. The first time each Magistus monster you control with an equipped card would be destroyed by battle each turn, it is not destroyed. You can only use each of the following effects of Magistus once per turn and only once per turn. During your main phase, special summon 1 level 4 spellcaster monster from your hand. You can send this face-up card to the graveyard, special summon any number of Magistus monsters with different names from your hand. Basically being able to get you that interaction, get those bodies out on the board, instead of committing to your normal summon can help greatly by setting up plays. For example, being able to special summon out the Machikiru or a Zoroa instead of normal summoning it leaves it open to where you can do your Luna plays or whatever. The other option, basically sending it to the graveyard and plussing off, I think, 2 or 3, depending on the amount of Magistus monsters you're running, can really help out as well. Speaking of Magistus, we're playing 2 Ver Magic Lacrima of Light. This card is always treated as a Magistus and Witchcrafter card. Activate one of these effects, but you can only use each effect of Very Magic Lacrima of Light once per turn. If you control a Magistus monster or a Witchcrafter monster, send one spellcaster monster or one spell from your deck to your graveyard. When your opponent activates a card or effect, special summon one Magistus or Witchcrafter monster from your hand or deck, basically giving you that option to go into your Mechaba or really interaction with your Crowley. Can help out a lot because it allows you to fuse on your opponent's turn. So that can help break boards, but also set up some really interesting negates. Swapping into our Witchcrafters, going off of that, we're playing 2 Witchcrafter Creation. Do note in the competitive version for actual tournament data, you'd probably want to play this at 1, just so you have a way to search it, but also gives you a recurable search. Witchcrafter Creation, add 1 Witchcrafter monster from your deck to your hand during your end phase. If you control a Witchcrafter monster while this card is in your graveyard, you can add this card to your hand. You can only use 1 Witchcrafter Creation effect per turn, only once that turn. So, being able to give you an additional monster, giving you that search, but also being able to allow you to play around hand traps can help out greatly. Then, of course, I'm playing 2 Magicalized Fusion. Fusion summon one spellcaster fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing materials listed on it from your field or graveyard. You can only activate 1 Magicalized Fusion per turn, giving you further access to utilize materials in your grave or on your board. But also, we're playing 2 Super Polymerization. Discard 1 card. Fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from either field as fusion material. Neither player can activate cards or effects in response to this card's activation. So if you have a Fairy Tale monster or a Spellcaster monster on your side of the board and your opponent has an extra deck monster, you can go into your Magistus Chorizo pretty easily and break your opponent's board, which can help further your plays. While this deck can be further improved by cutting out the Super Polys, cutting the Magicalized Fusion down to 1, the Witchcrafter Creation down to 1, you do have further interaction, which you can really utilize this deck and further push for more damage as well. Do note that I am not currently playing any traps for this deck, but that can be changed greatly in the future. It's really up to how you want to play the game. Now, one other card that I will make a statement about, if you choose to cut all the pointed cards, you can technically do, what is it? Secret Village of the Spellcasters. That can be used. Just do note that that card does come with a high price. If you do not have a spellcaster monster on board, you cannot activate spells. Same with your opponent. So that can stop them from doing plays, but it can also hurt you as well. So you do have to be careful of that when you're utilizing that. Anyways, guys, let's hop right into our extra deck so we can see what we're running there. All right, so for our extra deck, let's go ahead and hop right into this. We're playing the 1 Magistus Chorizo, aka Magistus Chorizo. 1 Fusion, Synchro Exceeds, or Link monster plus 1 Spellcaster monster. Must be either Fusion Summon or Special Summon from your extra deck by sending the correct Fusion Material monster cards you control to the graveyard. Once per turn, when a monster declares an attack, you can target it, negate the attack, and if you do, this card gains the attack equal to that monster's attack until the end of this turn. Then you can return that monster to the hand. So basically being able to bounce back a troublesome monster can really help out, but also giving Magistus Chorizo a additional attack boost until the end of the turn makes it a little bit more fun to utilize. Up next, of course, I'm playing 2 Teller of the Fairy Tales. 1 light Fairy Tale monster plus 1 Spellcaster monster. Fairy Tale monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle. You can only use each of the following effects of Teller of the Fairy Tales once per turn. If this card is Fusion Summon, using Prince of Fairies as material, you can destroy as many cards your opponent controls as possible. And if you do, inflict 500 damage to your opponent for each card destroyed. When your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, you can banish 1 Fairy Tale card from your hand or graveyard, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card, giving you a built-in negation, but also board pop can really help when coming down to actually breaking a board or not. Up next, of course, we're playing 2 Weaver of Fairy Tales. 1 Fairy Tale monster plus 1 Spellcaster type monster. All Prince of Fairies on the field become Spellcaster monsters. During your main phase, you can special 1 Fairy Tale monster from your deck or banishment. You can only use this effect of Weaver of Fairy Tales once per turn. If you normal summon or special summon a non-Earth Fairy Tale monster while this card is in your monster zone except during damage step. You can target one effect monster your opponent controls, negates effects, and its name becomes Prince of Fairies. So additional negation, but also giving you the capability of changing that monster's name to Prince of Fairies for a fusion material. That's pretty peak. Next, of course, going to the Magistus for a second, we got Iwas, the Magistus Spell Spirit. One Magistus monster plus one spellcaster monster. While this card is an equipped card, the equipped monster gains 1,000 attack and defense. During the main phase quick effect, you can target one other face-up monster on the field. Equip this card you control to it. If this card was equipped to an opponent's monster by this effect, take control of the equipped monster. Also cannot activate its effects. You can only use this effect of Iwas, the Magistus Spell Spirit once per turn, giving you further access to steal a monster or boost your own. That really helps as well. Next, of course, we're playing one Witchcrafter Vice Madame. One Witchcrafter monster plus one Spellcaster monster. When a spell card or effect or a non-fusion Spellcaster monster effect is activated, quick effect, you can activate one of these effects, but then you can only use each of the Witchcrafter Vice Madame effects once per turn. Destroy one card on the field. Special one level 6 or lower Witchcrafter monster from your hand or deck. Add one Witchcrafter spell or trap from your graveyard to your hand, giving you a bit of recursion, but also giving you that interactable pop, which can further help settle out and seal out games. Next, of course, we're playing one Zoroa, the Magistus Varith Ragna. There we go. One Magistus monster plus one fusion, synchro, exceeds, or link monster. You can target one effect monster in your graveyard or your opponent controls. Equip that effect monster to this card. When a monster effect is activated, quick effect, you can send one face-up Magistus monster card you control to the graveyard, negate that effect. Then you can destroy one card your opponent controls. You can only use each of the effect of Zoro the Magistus Varith Ragna once per turn. So interactable monster negate, but also a pop as well. The most broken card, I feel like, for this deck, Invoke Magistus Omega. Ouster the Invoker plus one fusion, synchro, exceeds, or link monster. If this card is special summoned, you can target one fusion, synchro, exceeds, or link monster in your graveyard and one monster on the field. Banish them. If this fusion summon card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon level 4 spellcaster monster from your deck. Then you can equip this card to it as an equipped spell that gives it 1,000 attack. You can only use each effect of Invoke Magistus of Omega once per turn. So basically, when it's destroyed by battle or card effect, you can then tutor out a needed spellcaster, one of your Fairy Tale monsters, one of your Magistus monsters, one of your Witchcrafter monsters that is level 4 or lower, and be able to pop off with their effects there. Then, of course, we're playing the one Invoked Mechaba, which is one Ouster the Invoker plus one light monster. Once per turn, when a spell, trap, card, or monster effect is activated, quick effect, you send the same card or same type of card, monster, spell, or trap from your hand to the graveyard, negate that activation. If you do, banish that card. So basically giving you a interactable negation, but also more board protection. Now for the more synchro and exceeds monsters that we can utilize here. Of course, we're utilizing one Zoro, the Magistus Conflagrant Calamity. One spellcaster monster plus one or more non-tuner monsters. If this card is synchro summoned, you can equip one Magistus monster from your extra deck to this card. Your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters with the same card type, fusion, synchro, exceeds, or link as a Magistus card in your spell and trap zone. If this card is in your graveyard, you can target one Magistus card you control, destroy it. And if you do, special summon this card. You can only use this effect of Zoro, the Magistus Conflagrant Calamity, once per turn. So basically locking your opponent from being able to use synchro, exceeds, link, whatever effects. It can help seal out games pretty easily. Then, of course, we're equipping one of them, or it with Ninaru if we're going against Exceeds. 2 level 4 spellcaster monsters. While this card is an equipped card, the equipped monster can make up to 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase. You can use each of the following effects of Ninaru, the Magistus Glass Goddess, once per turn. You can only detach one material from this card, then target one level 4 or higher spellcaster monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand. While this card is equipped to a monster, you can target one Magistus card in your spell and trap zone, and one spell trap your opponent controls and destroy them. And then, of course, I'm playing 2 Fairy Tale Witcat. 2 level 4 spellcaster monsters. Each Fairy Tale monster you control, whose original attribute is light, is unaffected by your opponent's activated effects. You can only use each of the following effects of Fairy Tale Witcat once per turn. You can detach up to 2 materials from this card, send Fairy Tale cards from your deck to the graveyard equal to the number detached. If this card is in your graveyard, quick effect, You can target one fairy tale monster you control whose original attribute is light, special summon this card, and if you do, send that monster to the graveyard. So basically giving you additional protection of your fairy tale monsters, but also giving you additional body, which can help out greatly. Now, the one monster that I'm still waiting to come in, let alone looking for in my meantime, is Varum, the Magistus Dragon. Basically, that is the card that you're going to use to prevent your opponent from using synchro effects, which can help seal out games a little bit faster as well. But that's all that I really have for this. Let's go ahead and hop right into our end of the video where I can go over a little bit more on some of the pros and cons of this deck. All right, so what are some pros and cons of this deck? Well, the pros, you basically get a lot of bang for your buck, making the fairy tale monsters very recurable, being able to utilize them for your fusion, synchro, and exceed plays. You are not really locked into anything outside of spellcasters. You can very much use the Magistus core to really set up some very interesting locks, protections, and interactions. Being able to utilize your cards from your banished, your deck, graveyard, and hand as well for materials, or just being able to summon them onto the board depending on what spells you're using, can really help greatly bring this deck together. While this deck is 94 points currently, you can still change it around and be very malleable with the points that you're using. So being able to further break your opponent's board or being able to really adjust it. Now, the other thing on this deck is that's a really good pro is that this deck is very malleable and very easy to change to go into a competitive variant. Being able to cut back on some of the Witchcrafter stuffs, on some of the additional fairy tale cards, on some of the extra deck cards that are kind of niche or you don't really need to play more than one copy of. That gives you further access to really run cards that you want to see, but also can utilize heavily. What are the cons? Well, the cons of this deck are that you have to use spellcasters. So you're locked into spellcasters. You can't really utilize some of the other monsters that you want to use, such as Iowas, Ninaru, or Varum, the card you weren't able to see today, as options. The other things as well is that you really need to pay attention to the cards that you're using. Specifically, you have to have monsters with either 1850 attack on board to utilize your fairy tales to the maximum potential, or being able to use your Magistus cards in general, being able to utilize the fairy tale monsters on board in hand as additional fusion fodder for your plays. You also have to keep count of how many summons you have, because if you get Nibiru'd before your actual summon of Vethra Ragna, it can actually hurt you. Because if you don't get to that monster negation for Nibiru, 5 summons can really be what can either make the game or destroy the game for you. While this deck has a lot of good things for it and is one of the cheaper options and one of the few archetypes that I would love to see more of and being able to be played and get better support for, this deck is probably one of the better options to play, especially if you're looking for a Genesys deck that can go into a competitive variant. Especially when this new ban list comes through, this deck will be one of the few decks that you should keep an eye out for and keep close touch on. Being able to know those interactions and how they work and going back and forth can actually save you some games. That Super Poly into Magistus Chorizo with one of your fairy tale monsters or a spellcaster monster can really hurt your opponent greatly, but you have to know when the timing is right. Anyways, guys, that's all that I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.